right. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this webinar, Anchor Your Business with IAIP for Sustained Growth. My name is Ong Pei Wen and I head Enterprise Engagement for IPOS International, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Intellectual Property Office of Singapore, or in short, IPOS. So as a group, we work to transform Singapore's future growth as a global hub for intellectual property, in short, IP. So IP creation, commercialization, and management. We support innovative enterprises, many from startup and SMEs, public agencies, and individuals to capitalize on your intangible assets, in short IA, and IP to grow and scale. And to achieve this, one of our key priorities is to equip our innovation community with the important skills and knowledge to leverage your most valuable resources, which my colleague Andrea will share more later. In the race to market, there are many IP needs and challenges that companies encounter but may not anticipate. Whether expanding overseas, protecting your rights, or collaborating to drive innovations, that's where we comes in. So IP Expert Series is a quarterly webinar series where our IP expert shares real-world know-how and best practices on IA and IP management to help enterprises overcome challenges with confidence. And each quarter, we spotlight a different industry from biomedical science to engineering, ICT and media, fintech, agri-tech, and food tech. So you can look forward to learning more about the issues and challenges facing different sectors and technology. So do follow us to hear more about all this. And for this webinar, organized in collaboration with the Singapore Water Association, this edition spotlights the urban solutions and sustainability industry, particularly the water industry, and is an associated event for IP Week at SG 2022. In this webinar, we will share IAIP perspective on how companies can sustain business growth with their intangible assets and feature the story of a Singapore-based digital workforce startup operating in the utility sectors that have leveraged IA to grow. And we thank Singapore Water Association for organizing this webinar with us. So joining us are IP experts Ms. Andrea Chiu, IP Strategist at IPOS International, who will provide practical IP management tips to boost your competitive advantage, and Dr. Mudasser Iqbal, founder CEO of TeamSolve, who will share his IP journey. And as the host, I would like to brief you that in the midst of the presentations, if you have any questions to ask our speaker at any time, please type your question using the Q&A function on this platform, and we'll get them answered during the Q&A segment. So without further ado, let me first introduce our speaker. I'll introduce Andrea first, and then she will move on with her presentation. Thereafter, we'll get Mudasser to share his part. So let me introduce Andrea. So Andrea empowers innovation enterprises to leverage their IP for growth and helps public agencies develop holistic IP management policy. Charged with a mission to catalyze the ecosystem with IP awareness, Andrea enjoys interacting with IP professionals as well as individuals from both public and private sectors. Between IPOS International and her previous employment at the National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technological University, Andrea has garnered over 14 years of experience in technology transfer, IP management, and IP advisory. She has a Master in Biotechnology, graduate certification in IP law, and a specialized certificate in IP management. She's also a certified licensing professional and a registered management consultant. Without further ado, let me pass the time to Andrea.
Thanks for the introduction, Pei-Wen. Let me share my slide first. Okay, so we are live. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Andrea, and I'm an IP strategist at IPOS International, the IP expertise and enterprise arm of IPOS. Firstly, a very warm welcome to all of you for tuning in to this webinar, and thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. I'm happy and excited that we have Mudasser as our guest speaker for this edition of IP Expert Series. So Mudasser, thank you for coming on board and sharing your IP journey with us. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Vivian and her team at SWA for partnering with us and making this event possible. Okay, so as this webinar spotlights the urban solutions and sustainability industry, particularly the water sector, let me start with some key observations and trends to get this going, right? So we hope to highlight the challenges and opportunities in this industry, and hence why any business operating in this sector should care about their intangible assets. But as you all know, folks in this audience are also not all from the water sector. So because we want to be inclusive, let me assure you, water tech or not, this webinar is still relevant to everyone here. And I'm sure every one of you will have something to take back after this sharing. So we all know that water is indispensable and critical to survival. But what is the situation of water today? According to UNESCO, the global demand for water will increase 20 to 30% by the year 2050. And this number could be much higher today. So if you see the report from United Nations last year, worldwide, 2 billion people lacked access to safe drinking water. Close to 50% of the world's population did not have proper sanitation facilities. Over 2 billion people lacked basic hygiene facilities. Almost half of the wastewater generated by households were not treated. And lack of water quality data meant that over 3 billion people were at health risk. So what do we make of this information? Yes, there are many challenges and threats looming ahead, but I also see opportunities for enterprises to innovate and make a difference. Moving on to the brighter side, you can see that in 2021, water tech startups across 90 countries raised $470 million. Now, I'm told that this number is not remarkable, or I'm not as remarkable as your other more sexy cousins of water, which is your renewables or electric vehicles. But for the water sector, it's actually pretty good. So on the tech front, 70% of the world's water-related technologies actually come from the US, Korea, Germany, China, and Japan. And this goes to show that these countries are taking water seriously. In the area of water treatment alone, you see that between 2011 and 2020, over 190,000 inventions were published worldwide. And China is fast emerging as an innovation hotspot for water treatment technologies. This is followed by South Korea, Japan, US, and Europe. So in case you're interested in our pattern analytics report on water technologies, I believe my colleague Peter has put up a link to the report, so feel free to look into it as well. And based on these trends alone, one can imagine that there is a growing shift in how water sector is responding to the many challenges around us. And because there are many in the audience, again, going with being inclusive, we want to share this flow chart, which I hope will benefit the rest of the people in this audience. Essentially, it highlights or gives you an overview of the different components that make up the water industry, which starts with rainwater collection to its treatment and distribution from various and for various uses in the households, industries, as well as agriculture. This is followed by the treatment of wastewater from each of these sectors before it goes back into your rivers, lakes, and oceans. As you can see from an innovation perspective, there's an entire value chain that remains to be explored. For example, there's opportunity to innovate in the area of water resources management, as well as in terms of water infrastructure and water-related services. Having said that, we all know that entrepreneurship is hard work, and the failure rate of startups or enterprises in general can be as high as 90%. And it makes you wonder what sets the 10% apart from the rest, right? So one way to view this is to look at how these enterprises perceive intangible assets. Here, you can see a remarkable shift from way back in 1975 to 2020. Back then, businesses focused on their tangible assets. Today, 90% of the S&P 500 companies' corporate value lies in intangible assets. And if you look at the top 10 unicorns today, it is obvious that intangible assets have a key role in driving their business value. All this indicates that more and more businesses recognize intangible assets as their main value drivers, not tangible assets. And if that wasn't compelling enough, you can see here that investors today, including those from the water tech sector, are placing more emphasis on intangible assets. I like this quote by Brian Cohen from New York Angels, actually. He says very clearly that companies need to have a well-rounded IP strategy from the get-go. So taking a step back, let's dwell a little on what we mean by intangible assets, or IAIP as we call it. Simply put, unlike your tangible assets, such as land and cash, intangible assets are not physical in nature. And we like to define IA as being broader than your traditional concept or understanding of intellectual property or IP, such as your patents, your trademarks, registered designs, copyrights, and even confidential information, which are generally treated as a legal concept, something that is governed by complex IP laws, and often what you need to register in order to seek IP protection. So to understand intangible assets, you need to view it with a commercial lens. That's when you will notice that there are other intangible assets or business assets, if you will, such as data, know-how, brand, networks, and partnerships, which are no doubt intangible, but also valuable to the business. And that's why there's a gradual shift from focusing on your traditional definition of IP to IA as a broader concept, and realizing that they should be actively protected and managed for it to generate value. Take, for example, Evoqua, one of the leading water tech companies in this space. It doesn't come as a surprise to know that they own a huge portfolio of patents and trademarks. But what's interesting to note is that in addition to relying on patents and trademarks, they also rely on copyright, trade secret laws, and other intangible assets to protect their technology and grow their business. And this happens to be a statement taken from their latest annual report. So there you have it. If you are wondering how companies like Evoqua are leveraging IA, this is a perfect example. So how can enterprises use intangible assets to sustain business growth? That's the question and the topic for today, right? I like to use this slide to illustrate how intangible assets act as barriers to entry against competition and hence drive business growth. As you can see here, between two successful products, a product with stronger IA not only commands a higher price premium, but also maintains its market lead much longer than competitors whose products have weak IA. But what is a strong IA, if you will ask? To me, having a strong IA means leveraging different intangible assets and building an effective strategy around the core intangible assets. And to reiterate what Brian Cohen said earlier, it means having a well-rounded IP strategy from the get-go. So this brings me to what is a well-rounded IA or IP strategy. It is your roadmap to success and sustained business growth. It's about planning how the various intangible assets work together to successfully take your business from its current state to its future state. And for IA to be effective, firstly, it should be business-centric, always business-centric. And secondly, it should take a multi-layered approach. Let me take the next few slides to explain these concepts. So an IA strategy must always be business-centric, meaning enterprises must always consider the business objectives as the focal point. For a typical business, its life cycle will start with an idea, and then it goes through various phases between development of the MVP, launch of the product, to survival of the company, and then hopefully success, followed by expansion and maturity. And at each stage, no doubt the company will be focused on how to take its product to market, its business operations, how to grow, how to fund, how to get funds. But if you anchor these business activities with your IA strategy, believe me, the outcomes will be in your favor. So in the case of this vehicle leasing company, because their potential business partner did not take a business-centric approach when protecting its IP, the partnership actually failed. So as you can see, even though the foreign partner had patents in its portfolio, because it wasn't aligned to the business case, because it wasn't protected for the right reasons, they were of no use to the client. And the case in point here is that if your IA strategy is not aligned to your business goals, then it doesn't really achieve its effect, right? And if your patents are not adding value to your product or technology, then you really need to revisit why you're holding on to it in the first place. This is why an IA strategy on its own has no value. And we always advocate that IA strategy should keep up and evolve as the business grows. At IPOS International, we use our market advantage and drivers, or MAD growth, if you will, a framework to help enterprises draw the connection between their business and then their IA strategies. And because businesses take years to build, my next slide will illustrate what it means to take on a multi-layered approach to IA strategy development. I like to think of an onion actually when explaining this concept. My daughter laughed at it, but yeah, it's easier to explain. So simply put, you want to build your IA portfolio and use them as layers or a bundle of IP rights that protect and sustain your competitive advantages. So that way, even if any IP protection layer gets eroded for whatever reason, you still have other layers as a buffer. So going back to the case of Evoqua, we saw that it approaches IA strategy in a way that it uses different types of IA to act as a protective layer for their technologies and the business. So you can do that. Use more than one IA and see how it protects its business. I mean, Apple does it, many other bigger brands do it, so why not, right? And a multi-layered approach to IA strategy to me also means using different IA management activities to protect and sustain your competitive advantages. So these are more about how you manage your IAs. So for example, if you're looking to set up a business, think about not just registering the company name at ACRA, which many people do and think that's all they need, but also how you will build your brand using your domain names and trademarks. Not doing so can cost you a lot of money, especially if you realize that someone else already has a website bearing the same domain name, or you don't have the rights to use your brand name because someone else has registered the same trademark in that country. Luckily for this cleaning solutions company, they were right on time when they started to think about the IA strategy and how they would grow as a brand. When we first spoke to them, they had not thought about their brands or trademarks. After working with us, they actually went on to register their trademarks and formulated an IA strategy. This helped them maintain their competitive edge in the market, especially during the pandemic. And today they are actually a household name because they understood how IAs can sustain their business. In the same way, you want to use patents, designs, trade secrets, and other IAs to protect your technology and products, or look at how you manage different IAs within the organization with respect to external parties, competitors, and even copycats. In the interest of time, I won't go through each of these categories here, which actually isn't cast in stone. So you can play around it depending on your business needs. But essentially what I want to emphasize here is that firstly, this multi-layered approach must always be business-centric. And you don't have to file or pile on the different layers all at once, okay? So plan what layers you need to add or remove, all based on your business needs and the time during which your business is growing. So to wrap up, whether it's WaterTech specific companies or any business for that matter, every business needs to cross that valley of death we so often hear about. And to increase your odds at making it across that treacherous valley, enterprises should take a business-centric, multi-layered IA strategy approach. And as you develop your IA strategy, remember, start with the basics, keep it lean but mean, so your core assets are well protected. As your business grows, you can build your IA strategy from simple to complex and widen your net. That's how enterprises transform from playing defensive to really offensive. And as with any business, we know your balance sheet matters, which is why you need to know when your assets turn into dead weight. So lose what you don't need. And lastly, manage your IAs consistently and with purpose. Always keep your eyes on target and monitor your business environment to maintain your competitive advantage. With that, I will conclude my presentation here and hand the time over to Paywan so she can introduce Mudasser and who will be sharing with us about his personal IA and experience with IA and his insights on why IA should be part and parcel of every business. Paywan, over to you.
Right, thank you, Andrea. Thank you for giving us such a good overview of how IA, IP are essential to create your competitive edge and the tips to develop an effective IA strategy. So if any one of you have any questions to ask Andrea, please put your question into the Q&A box, and then we'll see if we have time for her to answer those questions. And so next up, let me introduce our next speaker. So we have Mudasser. Mudasser is the founder and CEO of TeamSolve, where he leads the company's strategic vision, product design, and growth with deep passion for applying computing and AI to digitally transform our life for a better and sustainable planet. Prior to TeamSolve, Mudasser was the Director of Client Solutions and Global Software Strategy at Xylem, a leading American water technology provider. He was also the co-founder of Vicenti, a Singapore-based smart water analytics startup acquired by Xylem in 2016. At Vicenti, he headed the product development, cloud infrastructure, and AI data science teams while working with domain experts, providing product strategy and design directions. He also leads the development of strategic reseller and supplier relationship in Oceania, Southeast Asia, and Middle Eastern market as part of Vicenti go-to-market strategy. And following the acquisition, he supported the integrations and commercial excellence of Vicenti portfolio at Xylem and led the international multidisciplinary team for customer and reseller relationship. Mudasser was also an MIT Young Innovator TR35 for enabling greater water efficiencies in utilities. He holds multiple patents in climate monitoring, visualizations in sensor networks, and remote sensing. So without further ado, let me invite Mudasser onto the screen to share with us his IP journey. Mudasser?
Thanks, Payman.
Over to you.
So much. I hope you can hear. Okay, I'll
Yes,
share the screen. Okay, all good?
Yes, all good. Over to you.
Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Payman and Andrea, for inviting me to share our story. And welcome, everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And thanks to the IP office of Singapore and SWA for organizing this. I think this is quite critical especially for startups who are on the journey, and to understand the defensibility and the IA aspects that Andrea spoke about. So over the last 15 years, I have had the opportunity to live through this journey as a water entrepreneur. Andrea provided a great backdrop at the global state of affairs from intellectual property perspective, from intangible assets perspective, and she's spot on about intangible assets being the key and of key importance. So today I would like to share some of our experiences as a water startup, and that hopefully it will resonate with some of you, and that can provide some lessons on your own journeys. So I think the fundamental question that Andrea also raised, and this is where we started, and a lot of us as entrepreneurs, when we start to think, what should be patent, what should we protect, and when should we do this, and where should we file it? So we go on all of these kind of questions. But then after this 15 years of journey, we realized along the way that it is a lot of why that we miss. We forget to ask the question, why do we need to protect any of this? And that is the question we realized that that needs to be the starting point rather than we figure out along the way. So when we started Vicenti back then, about 2011, Vicenti was a smart water startup, for some of you who know, started in Singapore and helping water utilities solve some of the water losses challenges that we all know is being faced everywhere. It was one of the pioneering startups. And the three co-founders, myself, my colleagues, Ami and Mike, we came out of the Singapore MIT Alliance in Singapore, and full of enthusiasm of innovation and research and awe of what we had built and producing the research. So we really felt the urge to protect it, assuming that it might be valuable enough sometime down the line. We had some initial few customers who had validated the ideas that what we were building was great, and we took it as an approval that what we had was novel, and it was great to go ahead and protect it. But we did not, to be honest, we did not really know what was really novel in the entire scheme of things that we were doing. It was a system that has sensors, it has a software, it has algorithms, it has hydraulic model, it has all of these pieces. All of it together, it seemed like it was novel. So we went on to work with the NUS's Technology Transfer Office. It was great. And we went on to compile a laundry list of, okay, this is everything that we think is novel. Coming together, it becomes novel. The NUS TTO office did a great job, and they helped to check what was patentable, what was not patentable, and see, our main focus here is patent, and that's what we're doing. So obviously we worked with them. It took us quite a lot of time, and we quite a lot of money as well. And some of these were went ahead and we filed with an attorney, again, consumed a lot of time and money. But then we realized along the way that there were multiple pathways to get to the solution that we were building. Ours was novel, was great, but it was just one of many possible ways. And moreover, when we were engaged with the customers as we were building the product and as we were releasing into the market, there was a lot of more innovation that we were doing along the way in terms of providing, and these customers were co-innovating with us in terms of providing test sites, and they too wanted to publicize some of the achievements that we were all having together. So the work was already getting into the public domain faster than we could secure this full laundry list of patents that for which we had no money as a fresh startup. We could not spend so much money in getting everything. And we thought that this whole thing together is what we need to patent. And this would result in maybe 6, 7, 8, 10, or maybe more patents. So, and we had no money to that. So business was moving faster, going into the public domain faster, and we were not moving it fast enough on our IP side. So these realities came together, and we started to question on the worth of continuing to pursue and invest in securing the patents, as we could not see. That's when we started to see that it's not working for our business objectives. So we basically ended up keeping a lot of it as a straight secret. And that's what went on towards our acquisition journey later on. So when the acquisition discussion started with the acquirer, obviously the question of how protected, how defensible was the business, it was very important to the acquirer, and it was for all good reasons. So as the founders, we dug very deeply at that point in time into what was the existing portfolio outside, around the area where we were operating in the water space. We proactively shared all of those that we found that these have some similarity to what we were doing. We shared all of those with our acquirer, so we come clean and we make sure that they understand how are we defensible, how are we different, how our technology still has the freedom to operate. So obviously they engaged their IP experts from their side, and they read through all of those, and they did their own research. They had questions that we very diligently answered. I still remember one of the questions they came back with. There was one patent they find, and the patent was, if you have a sensor, it is producing a reading, you compare the sensor reading with some predicted reading, and if there is a difference, you can flag an anomaly. This was a patent. So they came back and said, hey guys, you are detecting pipe bursts in the water network. You are detecting this, detecting anomalies in the water network. How are you doing it? So we said, yeah, we take the sensor readings, then we have some algorithms that crunch through the data. We estimate this is how it should be. We compare, and then we figure out that there is an anomaly. And they said, isn't this infringing on this patent? That was that could have been a big issue. But then we kept our cool, and we thought, okay, is this patent really enforceable? Basically, what they're doing is you compare two readings. If there is a difference, you raise an anomaly. This methodology is patented. If that's the case, NASA cannot send their rovers to the Mars, because in the aerospace, in the oil and gas, in every industry, this is the fundamental, how you detect anomalies. If this patent was enforceable, oh my gosh, this company who has patented it would be trillionaires based on the royalty they will get. So eventually, it was determined that this is not even enforceable, and kudos to the attorney and the company who got this patent in the first place. So that's how we got through those hurdles in the acquisition discussions. Some of the other aspects that also came up, Andrea spoke about the trademark. So we had trademarked, we had some of our product names for which part of the product name, another company figured out that the part of our product name was infringing on their trademarks. So they came chasing us and said, no, you cannot have these product names, you need to change it. Now, luckily, and this is what Andrea also mentioned, that by then we had established the Vicenti as the brand name. Vicenti was the name that everybody knew. It was not the product names which were critical. So we had no problem changing the product names. So that was another lesson on investing in protecting our trademarks, and whatever we think is our thought leadership, what we want to spread out in the market, invest in that. In our case, it was the name of the company, the Vicenti. That was important. The names of the product did not really matter much. So, and then obviously, in this journey, we realized very early on that through these discussions what we're having with this acquirer, what they were really valuing was the business itself, the team, the customer base we had, the testimonials they were getting, the trade secrets. And to counter any risk that there might be, somebody may come claiming later on, they had put some of the money in the escrow, that for the next 1 year, if any claims comes, then this money will have to be used to pay against those. And we were fine with that because we were very confident because nothing else like that going to happen. But this was a real lesson for us, that all along, as we started on the Vicenti journey, we had thought a lot about the patents as being the key, and we went on as the PhDs to protect whatever we thought was novel. And eventually, when getting towards building the business, kept keeping on innovating, and then getting into the acquisition discussions and firsthand seeing what was the acquirer really valuing, what are our customers really valuing in this case. It was the onion example that Andrea gave. It was all the other things that we were not paying a lot of attention to. But luckily, we had sorted those pieces as well, the team and the customer base and all of those things. So this is something that we have now taken. Vicenti has been acquired almost 5 years ago, and we spent the last 5 years with the mothership. And now the Vicenti founding team has exited, and now we have all come together again to form the next company, what we call TeamSolve. And a lot of lessons from the defensibility and the IP journey that we learned from the Vicenti route, we are taking on now in this new venture. So before I go into what are we doing, how are we protecting our IP, and how are we building our defensibility, that onion, let me just quickly share you what TeamSolve is all about.
Meet Lily, a true digital companion augmenting the human workforce to amplify productivity and enhance business efficiency. Lily learns domain scenarios dynamically and continuously preserves knowledge so it can be used to prescribe the best course of action whenever needed. All you have to do is ask Lily. Lily captures the most critical operational knowledge that would otherwise be lost when experienced staff is retiring. Hi, Lily. I'm new here. How can I keep up supply if the bean storage tank is out of service?
Hi. Based on our experience, you should throttle the main valve by 50% and turn on the secondary pump. This should restore supply in the system.
Thanks, Lily. I'll follow this course of action. Lily is a frontier breakthrough powered by AI that will promote a healthy and creative workforce. Learn more at teamsolve.com.
Great. So probably got the idea. So basically our vision at TeamSolve is to bring together and integrate all forms of knowledge, which is critical in an industrial environment in the water sector. Operational knowledge, tacit knowledge is in the brains of the people, and power almost 1 billion people, workers around the world in the industrial field to improve enterprise efficiency, precision, reduce operational costs, help reduce all the mistakes operators make because of the lack of information. So they will have quick access to what they need right when they need it. So as you can imagine, the innovation that needs to power the solution spans across a lot of hot buttons of today: AI, machine learning, human-machine conversations, knowledge management, robotic process automation. So there's a lot of patents that you can actually file. But this time, obviously, having learned from the previous journey, we are taking a different approach. We are starting with the why. Why do we need to protect? What are the objectives? And as a new startup, as you can see, the field is vast. We are on a fundraising journey. We are looking for early angel investors, early pre-seed investors. We are securing early pilots with our customers. And for this class of target audience, the investors as well as the early customers, they need to see how defensible is our technology. What is the IP in the technology? At the same time, we are looking at the entire existing body of the IP, what's out there in the natural language processing space, in the robotic process automation space, and what do we need to build from an offensive defensive perspective, because we don't have a lot of money to spend on filing tons of patents if we take the offensive approach. But at the same time, we do want to start protecting the bigger picture that the TeamSolve brings, the solution the TeamSolve is bringing, and then start to cultivate it through gradually as we go forward. So that's a why question that we are starting with, and this is the question which is leading into working with experts. So we have engaged, and so different from how we did at Vicente, where as PhDs we were sitting down and we are trying to think what do we protect. This time we have engaged experts who are well versed in the field that we are talking about. They're very well versed into the field of AI, machine learning, conversational interfaces, robotic process automation, and they are the ones who are guiding us through in building what we call is a galaxy of your patent portfolio to begin with, and then helping us understand that taking a defensive approach to begin with, what is it that we can protect first, file first, and then slowly and gradually start to take an approach of expanding on some of the patents, whereas on the other side, starting to put the landmines, taking an offensive approach to cover the entire field. So trust me, this will save you a lot of money to work with the experts, rather than having to go and figure this out. So like I said, we are working, we have already filed a patent, and a couple of other what we call the continuations of those patents are we have started on an accelerated route, and this is the one that will help our early investors and early customers to understand the protection that we have. And then on the other side, we will take an offensive defensive approach and start to build that galaxy that I just showed you, but all focused based on the business, and that's how Andrea had put it. What are the business objectives? And the business objectives will drive each and every piece that we pick moving forward. But then this is just one part, right? This is the patent part that we were talking about. But as we said, through the Vicente acquisition journey, we understood it's all the other intangible assets that we are razor focused on. So the core strategy at TeamSolve revolves around the defensibility, where patents are and IP and trademarks are one aspect. The domain expertise that the Vicente team came together and formed in TeamSolve. Our unique team, we are very lucky to have some of the team members from Vicente who have now joined us, that we trust, that we know, that if we close our eyes, we know they are the people who can keep secrets. So it's a unique team strength. We know that we're going to build a product that our customers will like, and the customer will stuck, so that will become a barrier for other entrants if they come in. Scalability is one of the key aspects that will define how quickly we can penetrate the market. Our customer relationships that we had from the past decade plus with Vicente, those are the ones which are our powerhouse that we can go back to start introducing the TeamSolve solutions. And obviously the network effect that comes a lot when you read up on your intangible assets and your defensibility is where in different geographies you have network of customers and networks of partners who have key strengths in those places, in those geographical places. They have monopolies in those geographical places. And if you partner with them, and that's what we are doing, in some parts, we have already started partnerships in some regions with people, with organizations who have monopolized that area. So it means if anybody wants to enter into that region, they must go through that partner, and we have already acquired that particular partnership. So it's that onion that Andrea was talking about, and it's that it is those layers that we are building around that helped us in the Vicente journey, but that's what we realized all the way towards the end. But in case of TeamSolve, this is what we are starting from the right at the onset, that our patent portfolio will take that offensive defensive approach to protect the ground, but then the defensibility is at the core, where we will revolve around these 5 or 6 elements you have on the screen. So I hope some of these lessons helped. It resonated with some of you. And I'm more than happy to, if you have any specific questions, more than happy to be contacted and happy to elaborate on some of the other aspects. But it has been an amazing journey all the way. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Mudasser. Thank you for the insightful sharing, and your journey has really been very exciting and very fulfilling. Can we have Andrea back on screen as well?
Hey there, I'm here.
Hi, hello. Right. So after both of your sharing, right, actually, I do have like a couple of questions that I would like to ask on behalf of our attendees to the both of you. And I see that there's some questions in the Q&A as well. Some of the questions are quite similar to what I would like to ask you. So, so maybe first questions. I know I heard Andrea talk about it, and Mudasser also mentioned about it, right? We talk a lot about patents, but we also talk about trade secrets. So, just wanted to ask, what is the difference between patent and trade secrets? So, which one is like actually more effective, and how do you decide between, what to keep as a trade secret versus what to disclose and file as a patent? Any one of you want to go first?
I think I can add to that first, and then maybe Mudasser can help me supplement the answer from his experience perspective. So, but before I talk about the difference, I just wanted to let the audience know that IP rights are territorial in nature, meaning if you don't have the IP rights in a particular country, chances are you will not be able to use the IP, or you will not be able to enforce your rights in those countries, right? As between patents and trade secrets, a patent is a right that is granted for an invention, whether it's a product or a process, or even improvements to existing products or processes. And for an invention to be patentable, you must have fulfilled the patentability criteria, which is it must be novel, it must be inventive, and it should have some commercial use tagged to it. So once you have a granted patent, you get the monopoly rights to exclude others. So it's not the right to use the IP, but it's the right to exclude others from using the same invention. And this protection is given to you for a period of 20 years from the time it is filed. So, but unlike patents, your trade secrets actually don't need to be registered. So you don't have to go to an IP office to register it, and they are generally covered or governed by your common law of confidence. So you don't have any rules, just like how you have for patentability. But the thing to note with trade secrets is that they need to have certain qualities tied to it. Firstly, it must be a trade secret, right? It must be something that's a secret. And secondly, it must be valuable in the course of your trade. So it must add value to your business, and you are deriving value because it is a secret. And lastly, but not the least important, it is actually one of the most important things as well, which is you must take a reasonable measure, or you take reasonable steps to treat it as a trade secret. For example, like putting under lock and key, or behind some password codes and all of that, right? So a very famous example is the Coca-Cola, where till today nobody knows what's the secret formula. So you can begin by treating your patents as trade secrets to begin at the start, right? You don't really go, just because you have an invention, you don't just go ahead and file it. You can start by treating it as a trade secret. And then over time, decide, depending on how your technology goes, or whether you even feel that there is a need to file a patent over it, you can then consider moving it from the trade secret realm to the patent realm. But there are trade-offs to protecting your invention as a patent, because it's a quid pro quo with that the government gives to you in return for the 20-year protection. So meaning at the end of 18 months, the patent application that you submit would get published. So that information goes into the public domain. So what you want to think about is whether or not this technology that you want to patent, if it goes out into the public domain, how will that affect your business? Is it worth going down the patent route? So in order to make that assessment, what we recommend is to look at two things. Firstly, is it something that you can detect if somebody else is infringing? If you know that another company or a business is using your patented technology, will you be able to tell if they're actually using that technology? Because without being able to detect, you will not be able to make a case of infringement against that party, right? So you will not be able to enforce your IP rights. And what good is a patent if you don't get to enforce it? And secondly, can it be reverse engineered? So with trade secrets, the thing is you lose your trade secrets protection if somebody else just happens to reverse engineer your technology. So if tomorrow somebody comes up with the Coca-Cola formula on their own without referencing or without having access to the Coca-Cola formula, then too bad for Coca-Cola, right? So you want to look at whether it can be reverse engineered. If it can be reverse engineered, then it's better that you take a patent approach, because that's when you will be able to kind of go after, or you will be able to protect it, get better protection out of it. So those are the two things that I would focus on, whether it's detectable, the invention or the infringement can be detected, and whether your technology can be reverse engineered by a third party. And if it can be, then patent is the way to go. So that's from me. I don't know whether Mudasser wants to add anything. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on, Andrea. And like I mentioned through our Vicente story, although we started with a lot of patent ideas, in the end, because as we saw from the market, the technology was evolving very fast. There were many ways to get to the solution that we had. There was almost no point in filing patents, because nobody would even bother in copying what you're doing, because if there are many ways to get to the solution, they will just do it. So a lot of this, and then because the technology was evolving, the innovation kept on evolving. So what we originally thought would go in the patent was not even valid after 6 months. So that's what triggered us to keep a lot of that as trade secrets. But then, as I will just add to Andrea's points, that when you keeping trade secrets, your defensibility aspects become so critical. Who are the people in your team? Can you trust them? Are they going to stay with you? How are you incentivizing them? Because if you have one programmer or two programmers who have written the algorithms, one data scientist, if data scientist this goes, your trade secret is almost out of the window. So when you decide to keep something as trade secret, think of from the most critical part is your team. Who are the people who are gonna keep that as a safeguard?
I would add to it that, like, in one of my earlier slides, I shared about like systems and processes and know-how management, all of that. So that's where, like, you have your people on the ground who are who have access to the trade secrets, but make sure that you know which people have access and what levels of access. How do you control that? And do you have your internal systems in place to make sure that that trade secret is managed? Because at the end of the day, when you want to go after anybody to say that, hey, you've infringed, or I mean, you've stolen my trade secret, then you want to actually show that it was actually something that you had protected. If you put it on the table for everybody to see, it doesn't matter whether you treat it as a trade secret or you think it's a trade secret. If it was just recklessly put out there and somebody has access to it, it's just gone. Yeah.
Right. I think this is really, really useful, but it's also an art to really protect what is important through trade secret management. And since we're on this topic, right, I can also share with the attendees that during IP Week, IPOS actually launched a trade secret enterprise guide to guide enterprises in the protection and management of the trade secrets in Singapore. I'll get my colleague Peter to share the link of this book through the chat. And if you are interested to learn more, or if you're interested to get some practical references, you can use this guide. All right, so this brings me actually back to my actually I have a second question that is quite related. And I think a lot of the attendees will also be very interested. This is something about partnerships or collaborations, you know, like working with an overseas company. So Andrea, you talk about the onion, right? And so, you know, there must be a certain strategy. And so now, if I'm looking at partnering with an overseas companies to actually export my technology to that country, and I did find a partner that is keen to set up a JV with me. So, but how do I ensure that I do not lose my competitive edge? You know, I don't think I want to give the whole onion to that JV, right? So, or is there any tips that you can give?
Definitely. I think this is a very valid question, because more and more you see companies cannot work in silo. I mean, even if it's big MNCs, and then you have this whole open innovation concepts and collaborations and partnerships that people want to look into, right? No man is an island. Similarly, no business is an island as well. You have to partner. You have, in order to scale, in order to grow, in order to make sure there's speed to market. So this question is excellent in that sense that it helps you see that there are at least two parts to it, right? Firstly, there's this partnership involved between two parties wanting to set up a JV. And then secondly, there's this concern that how do I protect my IP, whether it's in Singapore or even overseas, right? You can have a JV here in Singapore as well. But the fact is, you still want to make sure that your IP rights are protected or your business is protected, the competitive advantages associated with your technology, with your business is protected. So let me very quickly just address the second part first, right? Which is about protecting the technology. And just as how I explained earlier, and how even Mudasser ran through how his experience with IP protection. So IP rights are territorial, firstly. So back again, you need to make sure that you have your rights in place in the right territory in order for you to make sure that your competitive advantages in that market is protected. So if you're looking to actually export your technology, in this case, in the overseas market where you want to set up your JV, you have to make sure that the IP rights in that market, your IP rights in that market are protected. Similarly, any new IP that comes out from that JV in that market is also protected, so that any product or services that you put in that market is actually protected, and that you sustain the business accordingly, right? And you don't lose out to your competitors just because you fail to protect your IP and your competitors have actually registered. It's not so much just the patents, but also your trademarks for that matter. Like Mudasser's perfect example, they were using this product trade name, but they were stopped from using it because somebody else had already registered a trademark for it. And thankfully for him, it was just a product, so it was very easy to just change the product name. But if it's your company brand in itself, it's harder, because I mean, it's not that difficult in the sense of just changing a brand, but I think when you think about the costs involved, the marketing efforts and everything else, having to change a brand actually takes a toll on the business sometimes. So as for the JV partnership, firstly, you want to ask yourself why you're entering into a JV in the first place. And this is back to this whole idea of asking yourself why before what you want to do and how you want to do. So ask yourself, why do you want to enter into a JV, especially overseas? Is the partner the right partner for you to begin with? And is it going to help you achieve your business purpose? Then next, you want to know what kind of IP rights you actually need in the overseas market. Obviously, your patents or your trademarks or any other IP rights that you have, not everything that you have in your IP portfolio will be relevant to the overseas market or relevant to the JV. So depending on why the JV is set up and what is the purpose of that JV in that country, you will want to look at what IP rights you have and which of these is relevant for that JV. And then next, you want to also look at how you're going to control the IP rights that you invest into that JV. What is the other party bringing to the table as well? And that sets you up in a position where you can negotiate for the best interest of not only your own business, but also for the JV, right? So obviously you want the JV to succeed, but it should not come at the cost of your own IP rights in your own home country or in your own enterprise for that matter. And lastly, I just wanted to add on that, like, you know, what you often we talk about what IP rights go in, but you also need to look at what IP rights come out of that JV. So having a proper JV agreement, which takes into consideration what we see as background IP, as well as the new or foreground IP, is important. So you have to look at any new IP generated by that JV. How is it going to be managed? Who's going to own it? And then if at all, for any reason, the JV doesn't work out or parties need to part ways, what happens to the background IP, what happens to the foreground IP, all of those things need to be taken into consideration. So when you take a look at all of this, alongside of your business goals, you will be in a better bargaining position. You will have better outcomes, especially in terms of risk management, because going into a JV is not a piece of cake, especially if you're going overseas. So that's for me.
Mudasser, anything from you, from your experience here?
We'll just add that just recently we had this experience that we were venturing into a market where we wanted to file a patent. We were told that first we need clearance from Singapore because it's a Singapore-based startup. So I think that's something that if you are venturing overseas and you want to partner with somebody and you will be looking to protect your IP rights in that country, I think if you are Singapore-based, you need to talk to IP office to make sure that you are cleared to get those IP rights over there. So that was just a recent experience we had.
Right, thank you. And I think this topic really just made me think that, you know, it can be another webinar topic, working with our partner or collaborating with someone else. And actually with that, I would like to take the opportunity to maybe launch a feedback poll. So, you know, if any one of you is interested to look at other topics or, you know, in the future, right, do feel free to let us know, because we do have, like, you know, what other content you would like to look at in a future webinar. So do feel free to help us with the feedback poll. And while you're helping us with the feedback poll, or I've actually have time for maybe the final question. And if I can, you know, maybe I can pose this question to Mudasser. So, you know, what are some of the perceived risks associated with IP in different parts of the world in your experience, and how do you usually manage those risks?
Yeah, one of the key ones, when we were at Vicente, we were venturing into China. And there was a lot of perceived risk. Oh, China, no matter how much you patent, they're going to reverse engineer it, and they all will be copied. So these are all the perceived risks. And, you know, we really took a very practical approach to this, that if anybody wanted to reverse engineer or copy, you really need to look at how difficult it is to do that. And given the landscape, given how advanced some of the countries are in terms of their capabilities, probably they don't even need to look at your patent. They can themselves develop something much better than what you have. So what we realized, and in some geographies, your IP, what we used to call, and this is, I will steal from the CEO of the previous company, the acquirer, speed is the IP. Then in some of the geographies, the faster you penetrate, the faster you build your defensibility, you don't need to worry about people copying your IP. So the risk is there that people will copy, but you need to counter it with your defensibility, that onion. I keep getting back to that.
Absolutely. Yes. So if I can't, I think we are really running short of time, and if you can't answer all the questions, do feel free to contact us directly. If my colleague can pull up the slides, to show, our contact details. Yeah. So feel free to contact any one of us, or if you have any further questions that you would like to know more. And also, IPOS International is also providing complimentary IA chat sessions for innovative enterprises who require some guidance on AIP journey. So you can sign up via the link, or you can go to our website, iposinternational.com, to get more information. All right. And with that, maybe we will move the slides to the key takeaways of Andrea sharing, so that,
Actually, I think it has both mine and Mudasser sharing.
All right, that's great. Yeah, so these are the key takeaways from this webinar. With that, I would like to thank Mudasser, thank Andrea for sharing, and also thank everyone who are attending this webinar, and thank you for spending an hour with us. So we look forward to seeing you at another IP Expert Series event soon. Have a good day.